a clear vegetable soup
Right.
with vegetables in it. Isn't that funny?
Whoa. In she goes.
Okay.
And I'll pull that out in about 10 minutes or so, and I'm going to get on to chopping my vegetables. So I dare say I'm going to clean up a little bit.
And you can leave the skins on the garlic if you want to, but we didn't here. I've added in some sweet basil. We're talking stock. I've added some
You
sweet
should get
basil.
your own talk show. Talk stock.
Talk stock.
With all sorts
Talk
of
stock with
celebrities.
Ken.
Okay, what was I going to say? I was going to say that you can, if you're doing a stir fry, it might be a good idea to parboil a lot of your vegetables if you want to save on cooking time, like the harder vegetables, like the potato or the squash. You can parboil them and save on time because.
Excuse me.
You get me? Oh my goodness! In front. Okay, enough. There. Okay. You're making me very nervous today. All right. Can't even remember what I was going to be saying, but
Soup stock.
I'm going to start chopping up the vegetables for my stir fry. We've got some lovely purple cabbage today, some green onions, carrots, and some fennel. I might throw in a pepper.
Fennel. That's a change,
Ah,
isn't it?
that's a change. Okay.
Okay, there we go. Behind.
Fine.
Now,
Yes.
I've added in all of the herbs, and we're using dried herbs today. I've added in the basil and some oregano, and I'm going to add in some salt and pepper.
Now, I think I said earlier
2
about
bay
the
leaves.
substitution for my dish. I wasn't exactly sure if I said this, but I think I did, that you could replace the tofu with cube chicken or thinly sliced flank steak. Did
I
say
was
that?
here.
Yeah, did I
I
say
was
that?
here, and you did say that.
Couldn't remember. Thought I did. The mind goes, Ken. It just goes. The taller you are. Yes.
We won't talk height.
No.
Okay. So I've added in about half a teaspoon of black pepper and about half a teaspoon of salt. The salt content is entirely up to you, especially if you're on a low sodium diet. Right?
And it's also good not to oversalt your stocks because remember you're going to be reducing them in the flavor will concentrate. So it's good to season near the end. Even though
Right.
salt at the beginning does bring out the flavor of the vegetables.
Now,
Isn't it?
while I'm doing the soup stock, while the soup stock is starting to boil, we're going to bring it to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and allow it to simmer for a while. I'm going to prepare the actual vegetables that are going to go into the stock once it's cooked.
Now that's exciting.
That is exciting.
Very exciting.
Yes.
Now, before we go to the break, I have another trivia question
no.
for little Kenny here.
Do we have to do these
You
trivia?
love the trivia questions, don't you?
Well, I used to,
No, this is a
thinking
very...
that I would,
Get one or two.
but have I got any?
No. This is a very, very easy one.
Okay.
What did Clarence Birdseye introduce in 1930? You know this one.
I do?
Yeah, you do.
So you're setting up the viewers to think that this guy's a dummy.
No, I'm not, but I know that you know this one. If
Okay.
you think,
If I think.
that you might access it during the break.
Okay, I
So-
certainly will.
so-
I'll give it some thought.
When we get back, we're going to talk stock. I know we're going to talk stock, and I'm going to start my stir fry. So see you in a minute. Hi, and welcome back to What's for Dinner. I'm just finishing chopping up my vegetables, my cabbage, and my garlic, and I've got my tofu baking in the oven, and it's going to be ready in a few moments. So I'm well on my way to getting my stir fry happening, and Ken stop.
I'm on to the vegetables that are going to go into the stock once it's done.
You mean
Into
your
my,
soup?
In my cilantro soup. Yep.
Right, can't wait for that.
And I'm going, after I do that, I'll start my salad. And I've decided today to add some
Dried fruit.
dried fruit.
You're going to add some apricots and some
Yeah.
dried cranberries.
Yes, I looked in the cupboard and that's what we have.
That's what you had in your dried fruit department. So that's a fennel and radicchio salad, is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, I've got a little fennel in my dish.
I
Surprise,
love
surprise.
fennel. I
What's
really,
your favorite vegetable?
it is one of my favorite. I grill it.
What's your favorite fruit?
My favorite fruit is bananas.
Really?
Yes.
I thought it was
Yeah.
mango. I thought you told me mango.
No, bananas.
Really? I also had a couple of peppers lying around, yellow and a red pepper, and I thought, why not throw it into my stir fry?
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
This way, you get to use all the vegetables you have in your
Kitchen.
fridge. Yeah.
Okay.
Check in stock.
How's the stock?
Oh, this another minute, and I'm going to strain this.
Okay,
Yes. There we
great.
go.
And then that'll be a part of your soup.
It certainly
So
will.
that'll be the end of the stock talk, won't it?
You know, I think it's very important, though, that we show our viewers how to make a soup stock.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So that they don't always have to buy a commercial stock.
Right, but I think it was very straightforward what you did there.
Yeah.
Onion, water, bay leaf. Okay? We talked
Onion,
about
water,
it now
bay
for 6 shows. All righty? All righty, man.
Yes.
Did you hear
We
me?
all know Franklin as the inventor of the
Okie
five
dokie. Now I have a bit of a
focus
tip because we're using
That was
tofu
merely the
today in our
start.
dish. Tofu
His
can
famous
turn
work
very
of
quickly, so make
electricity
sure
is legend.
that when you store it in your
Started with
fridge
the
at home,
kite
you
and
store it
the
in
cake,
water.
but extended
Good
It
idea.
doesn't go bad. Yeah, you don't want it going bad.
Now, we
Franklin
forgot to do
even
something.
invented the
I can't even
language of
imagine
his
what
new
we would
science.
forget to do.
Coming up with the term
Oh.
positive and negative charges, conductor, and battery.
We're actually looking at the first.
Okay.
You know why I reminded you? Because I think I have it this time.
Ken?
I do have it this time.
What did Clarence Birdseye introduce in 1930?
Stored inside the glass container. Well, the genius of that
Commercial bird
realized that
seed.
If you put several of them together, you can store much more static electricity. Discharge it all at once, creating a very
No.
powerful jolt.
Birdseye
And
frozen
he named the battery
vegetables?
after the military term.
Have you been living on another
Oh.
planet?
Oh.
Commercial bird
One of
seed?
the really
See, I just thought, okay.
Yeah, I see. That gets ready for a loop.
So how many have I
Dear,
got?
it's a cooking show.
How many have I got?
That would be 0.
The electric
Bird
No,
seed and a
didn't I
cooking.
get some at the beginning? The Elvis one I got?
No, dear, that you, no. Did you get Elvis?
I got it, yes.
You
There
got
was a
Elvis.
question about
And
Elvis.
you got that.
And it wasn't a sighting.
No. Even though you said you saw him in your local food store the other day.
Yeah, and I have friends who've seen him.
Really?
Yeah.
Me too. Trying to get on my stir fry. Enough of this
Franklin
chit chat.
also
I got things to
invented
do.
the odometer.
Certainly do.
Places to go.
And I'm going to strain, guess what?
Postal routes.
Your stock?
I'm going to strain my
Scurry
stock.
over there to the sink.
Postmaster Ben Franklin took
Oh, where are you
temperature
going?
readings
I'm going
all
to
the
get
way
my
across the Atlantic
walk,
and
my
discovered
walkaroo.
the Gulf
Okay.
Let's
Stream current.
slide this over, the
His
stock.
map was so
Slide it
accurate,
over.
It is essentially the one
Go.
still used today.
Look
Okay.
at this, Mary Jo. One more time, I just want you to look at my beautiful stock.
Ken?
Yes.
Enough now.
Any
To
kind
the
of a
sink
point
and
the
strain
sink.
it. It does look delicious. That's my bag. But you know, why don't you boil it?
Almost Sunday dinner. Think about that.
Okay, be
That's
careful.
what it's really meant for. The
Would
unique
you
thing
like
about
bugs?
the PlayStation
We
is
do
that
have. Just one
Okay.
sec.
All right, just one sec. Ken's
none of
over
you
there
folks,
straining his stock.
especially today, know
Now,
exactly
if you wanted
but still
to,
remember,
when you're
Ken,
straining this
60
stock,
chefs, Sam,
you
they won
could
at,
take a
if you
potato
once or
masher,
twice,
which I do
something
sometimes,
doesn't agree with
and
you,
I mash
I think you've done pretty
right
quick.
through and
You can
allow
cut it up,
more of
you
the
can
vegetable juices to go
So
into
you
the
know what,
stock.
Joe? Help me cut
But,
this up.
we won't
What
do
you
that
have,
No,
today.
we don't have time to do that
Have your
today.
oven, you make
I'm just going to
nice
chop
hot.
up my
It's
ginger for
really
my stir
simple
fry, and I've
dish.
already taken the
Shows
skin
off
off.
the parts we
And when
take
you're
out of
cooking,
the
when it
piece
calls
of
for
the
ginger,
bone.
fresh ginger has got a very distinctive taste, a lot different than powder. So it's good if you can't get the fresh ginger to use it in a stir fry. Don't you agree?
Yes,
You'd second that emotion?
yes. I would not use it, I would not use the powdered as a replacement.
No. That's what I was getting at. Okay, you've got your stock. I see that. I'm just going to see if I've got some nice sesame oil, which I do. I'm going to put in my stir fry.
Mary Jo, look how rich and flavorful this looks.
I'm not looking. I've had it. No more. You're on your own with that.
Come and look at my stock. Look at my stock.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you have things to do. You've got a side dish to do. You've got to get on your soup.
So where's mine with the sauce?
All right.
Am I talking soup too
You're
much?
talking too much soup.
You'd think that I was obsessed with my
You
soup.
are obsessed. Okay.
Yeah, bro.
We're doing. There we go. Together, getting our
Okay.
vegetables.
Alright,
And,
you put it back
there
on
we
the
go.
fire.
I've got my cabbage in, my ginger. Ken's
There you go.
putting
Put it in the
zucchini
fire for me.
and carrots
Red
and
wine
heads.
with
Look at this
Go ahead.
teamwork.
There we go.
And here we go.
And that's part of being organized in the kitchen.
Now
It's
look
like
at
synchronized swimming.
yeah, without the nose plugs.
A little bit of
Look at how,
onion and the mushroom.
Colorful my stir fry is, Kenny.
Take on the fire.
Oh, it's
Compared to your
beautiful.
stock, I mean, look at it. It's beautiful. Look at all the colors and textures, the cabbage and the carrot. And I've got a jalapeno pepper that I'm going to put in because my friend Kenny likes things hot and spicy.
Yes.
That's what he tells me anyway.
Now, if you wanted to, You know how you could quicken the cooking time on this recipe? I'm going over.
In front.
Okay,
What?
and then I'm going to read the recipe once I give this tip. Is you can take these vegetables and put them in a food processor, but we're not touching an appliance today.
Okay, right. And how does that quicken the cooking time?
Well, just chopping them up.
Oh,
so you
I
don't
see.
have to
Okay,
spend
I
so
wasn't
much
sure
time.
where you were going with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to grab a pan, I'll tell you what you require for the clear vegetable soup with cilantro. The soup stock requires 1 large onion, 2 cloves of garlic, 4 carrots, 4 celery stalks, 3 tomatoes, 1 teaspoon of dry basil, half a teaspoon of dry oregano, 6 cups of water, 3 bay leaves, salt and pepper to taste. Now, the vegetables that we're adding to the soup stock, once it's done, 1 cup of chopped mushrooms, 2 shallots, half a cup of frozen peas, half a cup of frozen corn, 2 large carrots, 4 celery stalks, 1 zucchini cubed, 1/4 cup of chopped cilantro, 1 teaspoon of soy sauce, and 1 tablespoon of fresh parsley. There
See
we go.
what happens when you talk stock? See who gets to do the viewer mail? No, because you talk stock for way too long.
Oh, see, she's punishing me now.
Punishing him a little bit. Anyway, we've got a lovely letter from Joy, and she writes to say what a delight it is to watch your show. And although she's 74 years old, she learns something new every time. That's very, very sweet.
What does she say about Ken here? She says, I really enjoy
Joy, when Ken mentions the fish.
Gill and dill.
Okay, do you feel better
They're
now?
2 of my pets.
And she says, keep up the excellent programming, and we will. Joy, thank you very much for the letter. That's a lovely letter. Now you put that back on the fridge, because I got things to do over here. I've just added a 1/4 cup of my light soy sauce and a little balsamic vinegar, and I'm going to march over to that stove. What is going on here?
What?
I'm just going to get my tofu out of the oven. Oh my goodness gracious. And it's all nice and browned.
Oh, I like the little kick with the foot there. That was really...
Put that in.
Where's that
There.
going? Where's that going?
And we'll put in the tofu. And then I'm going to add my tomatoes.
Mary Jo. Mary Jo.
This is becoming too weird. Okay, my stir fry is happening. I'm going to take a sedative during the break, and when we
Okay.
get back, we're going to throw everything together here on What's for Dinner.
We certainly are.
We are? It's going to be great. See you in a minute.
Hello, and welcome back to What's for Dinner. I've just added in the juice of 1 lemon for my vinaigrette. I've chopped up my fennel and radicchio and some olive oil here.
Ken, that looks absolutely delicious. Now,
does.
I'm just finishing my garnish for my stir fry. I've got some chopped basil, and I'm dicing up some yellow pepper, and my stir fry is looking quite magnificent. It's very colorful and aromatic, and the tofu and whatnot. So if you want to grab that pen, I'll give you the ingredients that you're going to need for my tofu, stir fry, and spicy basil tomato sauce. You will need 2 teaspoons of paprika, half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 1 brick firm tofu, 1 tablespoon vegetable oil, 4 cloves of garlic, 1 teaspoon of freshly chopped ginger, half a cup fennel, 1 cup shredded purple cabbage, half a cup of shredded carrots, I just chopped them, 1 can stewed tomatoes, half a cup shredded sweet basil, 1 bunch green onions, 1 teaspoon chopped jalapeno or hot peppers, 1/4 cup soy sauce, and 1 teaspoon balsamic vinegar.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Now I'm going to add in, last minute, my finely chopped up mushrooms to my soup, and just let that stir and boil for a minute, and then it's going to be ready.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Alrighty then.
Look at that.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. I'm just going to grab some tongs, and I'm going to serve up our stir fry. Doesn't it smell great, Kenny?
It does. Look at Mary Jo. I've added in the
Your dried fruit. You talked a lot
Got
about
some
that dried fruit.
apricots.
On another trip
And
to
some
Britain,
cranberries.
Franklin spent
Oh,
time with his
beautiful.
good friend
This
and fellow
not only is
scientist,
going to add
Joseph
a
Priestley.
wonderful flavor, but it adds color
Priestley was
to
conducting
your table.
groundbreaking
Color.
experiments,
Little color.
establishing the
Look
presence
at my,
of
I've got my
oxygen and
basil
carbon
and
dioxide
my
in
yellow
our
peppers, and
atmosphere.
that's going on top of our
Franklin,
stir
upon
fry.
seeing Priestley's
Oh, it's gonna be
experiments
good.
with light,
And in
plants,
goes
and
the
air,
vinaigrette.
was
I
able
use
to
some
make
lemon
the
rind,
connection
lemon
between
juice,
living
olive oil, a
things
little
and
bit of
the
salt
air
and
we
pepper.
breathe.
And fennel.
Until that moment,
There
it
we
was
go.
believed
Look at
that
that.
trees
And now you're
needed
gonna scurry over
concrete
there.
papers
Wait, I'm just
should
gonna
be cleared
this in.
away from places where people
And you're
live.
going to serve up your
It
delicious
took
soup.
Franklin
my
to
soup.
Yeah,
realize
don't
the
forget about the
critical
soup.
role of plants to
That
clean
looks
our
really
air,
good. Kenny, do you
and
need
how
any garnish for
dependent
that?
we are on our
You're fine.
environment.
I'm fine.
Franklin, among
I
all
thought he
his
was
many
fine. I made a
other
bit of a
discoveries,
judgment call.
is responsible
fine.
for
You're
sparking
fine.
our
There we go.
So once again, we made a
of
delicious
ecology.
soup with vegetables. Kenny made stock. We've got our stir fry. We've got our delicious fennel salad. So I think we really
Don't get my stock.
your stock. I think we really pulled it together here in what's for dinner. Look at the stir fry. Oh, that's beautiful.
Look.
So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Keep writing. We love the letters on.
What's for dinner? Bye-bye.
All you want to do is just really big process. You're not really cooking it down. You just kind of sauteing it a little bit. And then reflavor into it. Like the apple does. You put your regular apple juice over here. I just take the apple. One over here. Cut it into a small like so. And then what I'm doing is just chop it. Really like that. And then really go right along. This becomes a little more fat. Spider gets out, they go from or father or whatever you prefer. Put it in your spider. You get some garlic and some shallots. This is the shallots. The shallots are the sweeter. Right in there. Alright, Kathy. Put it in there. The apple.
This is so much fun. I'm so excited.
And I have the sugar.
Cos'è Treadstone?
È un programma ideato dai sovietici per
And
creare
vinegar.
armi umane. Mi sentivo confuso all'inizio, ma finalmente so chi sono.
For this one I use balsamic vinegar because it has a bit more flavor to it. Of the 18th century for two reasons. One, it
The tuna in here.
All I gotta do is put some butter in my skillet behind me, and attacks your palate, and it's in perfect harmony. Balance between the honey, the sugar, vanilla bean.
So let's go eat.
Now let's see how we take this basic springboard idea and see what's on the menu today.
Julia, what are you wearing? Well, Jack, we're going to have a very hot show today.
I'm gonna show you how to make the best ever ceviche. No, really, it's my favorite ceviche.
There we go. Look at that, man.
And if you're lucky enough to have leftovers, you can have it the next day for lunch. I haven't had any leftovers with this one though.
Now, as we do it every time, we do a springboard idea, which is a basic concept that if you apply it to any recipe, any ingredients, it helps you to increase flavor and at the same time decrease risk. All right.
maybe you're saying, I'm gonna turn off the channel, I don't wanna watch Patty anymore, what is she doing? No, stick with me.
And I think we deserve some wine, right? Well, we hope you're going to do it for your friend
Oh, you'll love it.
and cook
Bon
together.
appetit.
And happy cooking.
Shall we try one?
Of course.
Fantastic.
Beef looks good.
All his other feats. We all know Franklin as the inventor of bifocal reading glasses. That was merely the start. His famous work, electricity, is legend, starting with the kite and the key, but extended to the lightning rod.
You ready? Let's snap into action.
Franklin even invented the language of his new science, coming up with the terms positive and negative charges, conductor, and battery.
To make good food, it doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need any special tools. All you need is here, cream, a little bit of gas, just go for it. I know that you can use it. From my heart. Your
The genius of Benjamin Franklin was he realized that if you put several of them together, you can store much more static electricity, discharge it all at once, creating a very powerful jolt. And he named it battery after the military term referencing several guns firing at once.
It should have been ladies first. Oh, I guess it was. Okay, here I go. Washing my hands.
If you rub this tube with either silk or wool, it takes the electrons from
And now we make delicious, wonderful, happening, fabulous meals from things we have covered in our fridge and our furnace working about half an hour.
and the positive charges would then charge the feathers, which would float and levitate inside the tube. And so A, it showed electrical science, but B, it also provided what Franklin really liked, was a little bit of magic and pizzazz in his demonstrations.
Franklin also invented the odometer, since he needed a way to measure distances for his postal routes.
Delicious,
America's
fantastic
postmaster,
recipe.
Ben Franklin, took
Spectacular.
temperature readings all the way across the Atlantic and discovered the Gulf Stream current. His map was so accurate, it is essentially the one still used today.
This is a series that appeals to your creative side.
Now we get ready for the entree.
Sumptuous stuff.
2.5.
How could that be?
Kind of
This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories.
Sunday dinner.
Actually, it's about food with an aromatic
The
quality
unique
that
thing about
fills
this
the
dish is that
nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful.
Experiment once or twice with eating something that's in a creamy taste, and it becomes pretty quick. We just cut it up in a tree dice. Actually, you know what? No, something cut this up here. Then what you have a dust sheet and the oven, make nice and hot. It's a very simple dish.
What's
Don't
going on,
off the pot and see it. I'm going to teach you in a moment. You'll find it here because it's complicated. Let me see. I don't. Dust sheet hot. Malt in there.
Maker Van Williamson crafts some very elegant wines. His Mendocino Zinfandel has wonderful character, great depth, and polish. It was among my personal favorites at the Zap tasting. I recently asked him about this particular wine.
What makes Mendocino special is it's the farthest growing area in California north. The buds on the vines come out later in the spring. This pushes the harvest date back farther into the fall. And it's a very slow, long ripening period on the grapes. And I find that it really accents the acidity in the grapes, a lot of tartness in the fruit, and also a lot of spicy, peppery characters.
Van's just one of the gifted winemakers producing great Zinfandel these days. So if you're looking for a reasonably priced alternative to top-flight Cabernet or Merlot, Look to Zinfandel, the all-American grape.
The small farmers can concentrate more on quality and not on volume. So as far as watching their crops and providing the best quality product, I think small farmers are more able to do that than large-scale farmers. You know, not to say that the large-scale farmers aren't needed, because they are. You know, they're an important part to any economy, and they have to be around also. But what the small guys provide is basically a niche marketing thing where they can concentrate on quality, on flavors, on freshness, things like that. To buy locally is important for the economy. The other reasons why it's important are you get a fresher product, you normally get more flavor, it's nutritionally better for you because the nutrition is in there still. A good example is we supply the Roys in Hawaii Kai, and because we're here on island, we don't supply any off-island Roy's restaurants. In fact, what we did was we went to Maui and we started a farm on Maui to supply Roy's on Maui. In Guam or Japan, I know Roy buys locally, and it's important. It's important to his type of cooking for flavor and freshness and
take all the vegetables
general,
you have left over in
you
your
know,
fridge
the overall quality of a
and cut
restaurant,
them up.
I think, is
You don't even have
told by somebody
peel
buying
them.
regionally.
Things like onions, we're going to throw in the skin, the whole works.
You know, these venues, like the restaurants, are part of showcasing what we can do in agriculture. A chef will take the time to go out and search out a farm to provide these restaurants with a quality product, and I think that's what a lot of people take away from when they come here and see how we do it, how we deliver it, how we pack it. They taste the flavors, you know, on farm, and they can go to the restaurant and see that, you know, very little is lost, because what we're doing is we're picking that day and providing it that evening for their consumption. I have a lot of people that come out that buy plants, and you know, I give them seeds sometimes to grow on their lanai. And the thing that I try to impress upon them is twofold, really. It's first, that when you do things at home, people tend to overgarden. They tend to care too much for it. And you have to realize that, especially herbs are, a lot of times, they're weeds. So watering every day is not a necessity. And that's probably the main reason why people kill plants at home, is overwatering or overcaring, you know. And if the plant looks good, you know, let it go. It's really important nowadays to start returning things to the earth, because for so many years, you know, a lot of the plantations have been using chemicals in our soil, and you find it in the groundwater and stuff. And, you know, it's really not their fault, because we haven't known very much about these chemicals that we've been using over the years. But now that we have this information, I think it's really important for farmers to start returning to the earth, and, in other words, regenerating the soil. And a good way to do it is with compost and things like that, organic, that really can enhance the soils in Hawaii and make them richer. The important thing is to support companies like Hawaiian Earth Products and Unison, because these are companies that basically, in the cycle of life, where, you know, they take the waste products from restaurants or whatever and regenerate it into a good earth soil compost, and we put it back into the soil, and we're growing things out of the same things that we're putting back into the, you know, the food chain. And it's important. You know, it would save probably about 25% of landfill space, and besides which, it's making a product that is reusable.
probably already know, we
Noi siamo i 7, gli eroi più potenti al mondo. Posso fare quello che voglio.
timing mistakes. Place your favorite pan on a medium heat and pour in the tomato sauce. You can use our recipe for tomato sauce if you want, and you know where to find the link, right? Once the sauce starts boiling, add some freshly grated pepper, some chili powder, and stir to incorporate the spices. Add a few torn basil leaves and stir again to complete the sauce. Now you really want to get the consistency of the sauce right before moving on, as this is what will make the final dish perfect. The sauce should be thick enough to properly coat the gnocchi, and only experience will tell you when it is the right time to stir in the gnocchi. However, you can get a pretty good idea by simply looking at how we are doing it. Now cook the gnocchi, drain them and tip them into the pan with the sauce. Start mixing immediately with a spatula to completely coat the gnocchi with the condiment. The sauce will soon thicken even more due to the starches released by the gnocchi, and this is perfectly normal. If you feel that the sauce is a little too thick for your personal taste, add a touch of water to thin it down just a bit. The gnocchi are of course already cooked, and you don't have to cook them any further during this stage, so make sure to be fast and efficient. And hey, if you don't have the gnocchi, no worries. Simply throw in a few boiled potatoes or some pasta instead, and you will still end up with something extraordinary. And here you have the final dish ready to be devoured. To be honest with you, I have no fancy words to describe this dish, apart from remarkably good. If you want my humble opinion, no cooking channel should be up and running without having a good recipe for melanzane alla parmigiana, also known as eggplant parmesan, as this dish is absolutely divine. Aubergines have the tendency to be quite bland, but let me tell you that once you have prepared them the right way, they turn into one of the most amazing savory ingredients. To begin with, let's slice the aubergine. In this case, you want to obtain slices that are quite thin, but at the same time there is no need to be too stressed about it, because thicker slices will work just as well. If you find it difficult to slice the aubergine in its whole form, cut it in half lengthwise, and you'll find the task of slicing it much easier. Next, place a griddle pan over a high heat and warm it up until it's screaming hot, and then start grilling the eggplant. I know that it's not very vegan of me to make a pan scream, but that's what it takes to get to the end of the recipe. Every slice generally takes about 30 seconds to cook on the first side, and 15 seconds on the second side. But this really depends on the pan you have, its temperature, and how loud it screams. Ideally, you want to achieve some light grill marks on the slices, which can range from brown or black, according to personal taste. Once the grilling stage is complete, we are ready to build the parmigiana. But before doing that, preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 360 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, take an oven dish and start with the layering. For this quantity of ingredients, we are using a dish that is 23 by 13 centimeters, or 9 by 5 inches. The order of the layers should be tomato sauce first, and then eggplant, sauce, salt, vegan cheese, fresh basil, eggplant again, and so on. The last layer should obviously be a tomato sauce one, with some cheese sprinkled on it, which will allow you to obtain the best good-looking parmesan possible. The dish doesn't need to be greased, but you can definitely do so if it makes you any happier. The sauce we are using here is a basic tomato sauce made with passata, but you can either use your favorite sauce or follow one of the recipes linked down below and in the cards. During this stage, you don't really have to be fast, nor furious, so relax and enjoy the peacefulness of the layering. The vegan cheese can be substituted with our mozzarella cheese if you so desire. Once the layering is complete, the parmigiana is ready to go in the preheated oven, where it will need to cook for 35 minutes. To allow for even cooking, make sure to rotate the dish halfway through the cooking time. Once the time has elapsed, the parmesan is ready to be enjoyed. However, to make this delicacy a whole lot easier to slice and serve, make sure to let it cool down for at least 10 minutes before serving it. Now that is what I call an entirely new kind of yummy. It's time for you to go shopping for aubergines and get preparing. And if you end up trying this recipe, make sure to let us know if you enjoyed it. We all enjoy food that it is easy to make, healthy, and tastes good. In this series, we are going to show you how to prepare food that ticks all those boxes. Discover a whole new way of cooking. Bold flavors to surprise any guest. Outstanding, low-fat and cost-efficient vegan delicacies for you to enjoy. Nutritious and delicious, don't even begin to explain it. One goal, great food, zero compromises. Get your kitchen ready for some magic to happen. Get yourself ready for some serious vegan cooking. In this episode, we'll prepare an amazing, simple-to-make Italian-inspired focaccia, some show-stopping and highly addictive mini pizzas and mixed canapes, our take on some soft, rich and glossy burger buns, and some beautifully shaped thin tortillas that will wow any crowd. Have you ever been under the impression that vegan cuisine is boring? Time to think again. Welcome to the Vegan Corner. This video is for one of our favorite Italian breads, focaccia. Today's recipe requires no kneading, but does need you to have fun. With a few tricks, you will learn how to make some state-of-the-art focaccia bread without breaking a sweat. To begin with, place the flour and the yeast into a bowl and stir them with a whisk. Next, add in all the water and mix the ingredients with a spatula until you obtain a rough, sticky dough. Now, you'd be surprised to hear that there is actually a lot of kneading involved in no-knead recipes. The important detail is that it is not going to be done by you, but by the yeast over the many hours of rising time. This is why it is mandatory to let the dough rise for a minimum of 12 hours, without trying to speed up the process. The result of not allowing the yeast to do its magic will likely be a flat bread with a terrible sticky crumb, a poor crust, and most important of all, very little flavor profile. Is that what you want from a bread? I'd rather wait and enjoy some killer focaccia. You can now cover the bowl with cling film and keep it at room temperature for a minimum of 12 hours and an absolute maximum of 18 hours. This will allow the dough to rise peacefully. Once the rising time has elapsed, preheat the oven to 220 degrees Celsius, which is about 430 degrees Fahrenheit. You can now prepare the emulsion for the focaccia by simply mixing the ingredients together. This is not technically an emulsion, because there is no oil involved. Anyway, this is how the dough will look after the rising time. Now line a baking tray with greaseproof paper and sprinkle it with some flour. Remove the dough from the bowl using a flexible pastry scraper or a spatula and pour it into the baking tray. Grease your fingers and press your fingertips into the dough to create the classic focaccia dimples. Next, randomly pour the herbs mixed with water, the so-called emulsion, over the focaccia and then press some of it into the dimples you made a couple of seconds ago. It is now time to sprinkle some salt over the dough to obtain a final, tastier focaccia. Cover the tray with aluminum foil, chuck it into the oven and cook the bread for exactly 30 minutes. Once the time has elapsed, take the tray out of the oven and remove the foil. Place the tray without the foil back into the oven and cook the focaccia for an additional 10 minutes, remembering to rotate the tray halfway through the cooking time to allow for even browning. Also remember to let breads of any sort to cool down completely on a cooling rack before slicing them. And this is how this no-knead focaccia will look like once the cooking time has elapsed, with a golden crust and a soft and wildly bubbly open crumb. We frequently see people proposing recipes for breads, pizzas and other similar products, but judging from their words and final results, it is clear to us that they have no idea about how baking works. Well, the good thing is that you don't need to know how baking works to make some seriously great bread. You simply have to follow the right recipe and hopefully you will find this one to be a phenomenal one. This tutorial will show you how to achieve amazing mixed canapes, one of the best dishes I can think of to be served at the beginning of a delicious meal. Not only that, but there would be pizza in miniature form. And who doesn't enjoy the sight and smell of some cute little pizzas? To begin with, crumble the yeast into some lukewarm water and mix well to dissolve it. If using active dry yeast, make sure to activate it as instructed on the packet. If using instant yeast, simply mix it with the flour. Place the dry ingredient into a bowl and stir to combine. Add in the water and mix with a fork until you obtain a rough dough. Now transfer the mixture onto a working surface and knead it until you obtain a homogeneous dough, roughly 4 or 5 minutes. Once finished, transfer the dough back into the bowl, cover it with cling film and let it rise for 1 hour in a warm place. Now to the gluten-free version. Start once again by adding the dry ingredients into a bowl and mixing them well. Now add the water mixed with the yeast and start stirring. Let the mixture rest for 5 minutes and the psyllium will work its magic by turning the mixture into a dough. Once the time has elapsed, the dough will be easy to handle, so roughly knead it between your hands for a few seconds. Place the dough into a bowl, cover it with cling film and let it rise for 30 minutes. Once the time has elapsed, preheat the oven to 220 degrees Celsius or 430 degrees Fahrenheit. Now the process is about to become even more straightforward. And yes, that is actually possible. For the gluten-free version, slightly grease your hands with some oil and transfer the dough onto a piece of grease-proof paper. Gently press the dough to obtain a flat shape, roughly half a centimeter or a fifth of an inch thick. Now, with the help of a cookie cutter or any other sharp object you desire, cut out some round shapes which are going to be our pizza bases. The same process should be followed for the other dough, so when the time is up, transfer the dough back onto the working surface and gently stretch it by hand to obtain a flat shape of roughly half a centimeter or a fifth of an inch thick. Then cut out any shape you desire. The spare parts of dough can be baked as well to make some mini breads or even some more interesting canapes such as breadsticks or dough parcels. Transfer the pieces of dough onto an oven tray lined with greaseproof paper and get ready to let your creativity run wild. To prevent the dough from rising excessively during the cooking process, pierce the bases with a fork before adding the topping. You can now garnish the canapes with any topping you desire. For the pizzas, I recommend using tomato sauce as a base and then to top them as you please. Some interesting ingredients we would recommend are mushrooms, onions, basil, olives, smoked paprika, poppy seeds, rosemary and oregano. As you can see, the only limit is your imagination and the availability of the ingredients, of course. Once you've finished, simply bake these beauties for 5 minutes in the preheated oven to complete the dish. And here you have the final canapes. Whichever version you decide to make, I can guarantee that it is sure to taste absolutely delicious. Today we offer you an epic recipe, hamburger buns. But how can they be so epic if everybody already knows burger buns? Well, these buns are not only 100% vegan and 200% better than the stuff you find in the supermarket, but they are also soft enough to be your pillow. To begin with, place the sugar, the salt, the water and the non-dairy milk into a container and stir well to thoroughly combine the ingredients. For the eggless egg wash, place a small pan over a medium heat and add in the sugar followed by the water. Gently shake the pan over the flame until all the sugar is dissolved and then pour the final syrup into a container and set it aside for later use. Now, place a few tablespoons of the flour into a bowl, roughly 4 or 5. Add in the yeast and mix the ingredients well to combine them. To make the dough, start by placing the mashed avocado into a bowl, making sure there are no large pieces, and if you do see them, destroy them with a spatula. Now add in the milk mixture and whisk the ingredients until you end up with a smooth green liquid batter. Add half of the flour mixed with the yeast, making sure to whisk the ingredients for 30 seconds to properly dissolve the yeast. Now add the other half of the flour mixed with the yeast and whisk for another 30 seconds to complete the process. At this point, you should have in front of you a sort of viscous batter. You can now add in the rest of the flour, but this time in 4 separate times. You can use a spatula for this process, at least until the dough becomes too hard to be managed with it. Now, you can obviously start using your hands to bring the ingredients together into a dough. The other option is to use a stand mixer if you have one, and if you do have one, just follow the exact same procedure, but the good news is that you get to do so without breaking a sweat. Although personally we prefer to use our time in the kitchen as a workout as well, as it tends to save time. Dust a working surface with water, transfer the dough onto the surface and start kneading it by hand. Here you want to knead for a couple of minutes. You may find this task annoying due to the stickiness of the dough, and because I don't want you to get mad over a piece of bread, you can use a little more flour on the surface of the dough every time it is kneaded. And when I say kneaded, I mean kneaded with an N, just to be clear. However, make sure not to add too much flour, as you do want the dough to remain sticky. The stickier, the better. Place the dough into a bowl, cover it with cling film, and let it rise for 2 hours at room temperature. To make the foil rings needed to create perfect buns, you can follow these steps, as the procedure is really self-explanatory. However, there are a couple of things I'd like to say. Firstly, make sure to start with a piece of aluminium foil, roughly 13 inches or 33 centimeters long. Secondly, make sure to leave the dull side of the foil on the outside, as we find it works best that way. And you have yourself a few perfect foil rings, ready to be used to obtain the most perfectly shaped buns you have ever seen. Once the time is up, dust the working surface with some extra flour, remove the dough from the bowl and place it over the surface. Knead it for a few seconds to deflate it a bit, and then start dividing the green dough into portions. At this point you do want to use a scale, as it is the only way you have to obtain buns of equal size. We like our buns to be 100 grams each, which is about 3.5 ounces. Before moving on, line an oven tray with greaseproof paper, grease the foil rings and place them onto the tray. Make sure to leave at least 1 centimeter, roughly half an inch, of space between the rings, or the buns will touch each other during the cooking process. Now it is time to form the buns. This is a very easy process, but not so easy to describe in words. But we are 100% confident that you will be able to understand how to form the buns by simply looking at the footage.